as far as like creating the magic, it's not something that we show up at the house and I'm like, okay, how can we make the vibe more magical? It's because the standard of magic was that seed was planted from the beginning, and I only watered that seed with magic. And I showed up with magic, and it's like I didn't have to think about it. It just happened. And the right people showed up, and every single person who came, it's a smaller event, they were like, I didn't even really know what I was getting myself into. It was just as soon as I heard you talking about it, I saw myself there. And I was like, great, that's exactly the intention that I set for every single person who was going to be here. So great, it worked.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, again, it's like, I think, again, when you have your intention and you know what you want people to feel and you know what you want them to get out of it, for me, it's very easy to curate the event. It's very easy to make decisions about what should be included and who should be included and how to set the stage.
How are entrepreneurs like us daring bravely to build a stage, ditch the sweatpants, and step up to the mic? How do we create our own transformative events so we can get our message out into the world in a bigger way that's not only profitable, but it's actually something we can be proud of? That's the question. And the answers are inside this podcast. My name is Sarah Pfeiffer. Welcome to Greenroom Central. Today I brought into Greenroom Central Studios Krystal Woods, human design advisor, speaker, and founder of Work Weekend, Portal of Potential, and Embodied by Design. Krystal Woods is on a mission to help creative visionaries to ground their dreams in reality with both standout strategy and spiritual alignment. She also educates and mentors entrepreneurs to learn human design for their businesses and work with clients through her training program, Embodied by Design. Krystal, welcome to Greenroom Central Studios. Say hello to Linchpin Nation.
Hey, Linchpin Nation. Hey, Sarah. Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. I've been looking forward to this ever since I was introduced to who you are, which was while I was listening to Jill Stanton's Millionaire Girls Club podcast. And I just instantly felt connected to connect with you in some way. And then as I was doing my research for our conversation today, I learned so much more about how we're so similar. You're a mom like me and a vegan like me, an entrepreneur like me, and you like Hawaii and Alex Hermosi. And I just found I kept uncovering more and more things where we have these similarities, and it just got me more and more excited to have so much fun with you today on the show. First thing, totally random, because you're a human design expert, would it be helpful for purposes of this conversation today? Would you instantly get me better if I shared my human design thingies?
I would love to
okay.
know. Yeah,
I'm so new. So I don't know.
When you started describing similarities between us, that's exactly where my brain went. It's like the more someone talks, the more I'm kind of drawing their human design chart in my mind. So sometimes really? I guess, but if you want to tell me, just lay it on me.
Okay, cool. So, and we don't have to analyze it or anything. I just thought it might help you get me. I don't know. This is the picture thingy, and it says, so it says what? Generator 2-5. Split definition, emotional solar plexus, yes. To respond, frustration, right? I don't even know, right angle, cross the Sphinx. So that, okay, so that, is that enough of the words that now
all
you're
I really need
I
to
get
see
you.
Was just the picture.
Okay, yes, cool. So
I love that.
I will tell you, that was so crazy for me to I instantly went straight from that podcast you had with Jill and printed this out and was starting to try and figure out what's going on here, but we'll get into that more later. Let's start. I always like to start with having a little fun and asking you to share a story. And so the whole premise of this podcast is all about the belief that being in the room is everything. And a little backstory for you. Within 6 years, about 6 years ago, I made my way into my very first personal development seminar. It was a 4-day seminar, and it totally changed my life. Within 11 months of being in that room, I had left the Midwest where I'd been my entire life and sold our home and moved to the Pacific Northwest where I'm at now. I'd left a 16-year corporate career and started my own business, paid off all the debt we'd been under for a decade and a half. And it was just this massive, massive shift. And so to start us off today, I would love to know, would you share a story of a room that you made it into that changed your life?
It's like I don't even know how to pick, but I usually just pick the first one that comes to mind. So
Okay.
I'll just pick um, this story that has unfolded in so many ways since it happened, because I think that part of being in the right rooms is just trusting your intuition
Mm.
about which rooms to enter and which rooms to stay in. And so a couple of years ago, I was on Instagram, and there's this account that I follow, and she had shared a poem that someone else had posted. And I read the poem, and I just felt it throughout my whole body. And I was like, I either know this author or I'm going to, you know? And so I went and I found the author of the poem, and I started just following her. And I just felt like, I don't know, I just had this urge one day to read her human design chart. I was like, it fascinated me um how much her audience loved her, like, and the way that they loved her. It just fascinated me as someone who studies human behavior, and like, this is what I do with clients, right? So I'm like, let me just read her human design chart live on Instagram and just see what happens, right? So I reach out to this woman. She had tens of thousands of followers. She has no idea who I am. And I'm like, listen, I would love to read your human design chart. If you're interested in that, just send me your birth information. So she did. So I make this video, and we like connect after that. She's like, I've never felt more seen. So we connect after that. And shortly after, she posts on her stories that she's hosting a poetry retreat in Tuscany, Italy.
Oh,
And,
wow.
I'm a mom of two. My children are small. At this time, they were like 2 and 6, maybe,
Okay.
maybe 3 and I don't know, 7. So I'm like, okay, she posts this thing, and I saw myself there.
Oh.
It didn't make any sense. I didn't know like how I would even make anything like that happen. I didn't have any clue how I would even come close to making the investment happen.
Yeah.
But I was like, and I'm not a poet. I didn't consider myself a poet. There's no reason really for me to go.
Right.
But I knew that I had been there. I could see that I had been there already. I was like, I know I'm going.
Wow.
And so, I end up there in Tuscany, Italy, at this poetry retreat with 17 strangers from all around the world. And this woman whose poem I had connected with, maybe a year prior, we end up becoming like such close friends.
Oh,
She's been on
wow.
my podcast. I've stayed with her in LA a couple times since then. And like, I made a couple of other friends that have gotten me through some really intense stuff over the past
Mhm.
couple of years. And those moments of like, I knew that I had to be there. I
Mm.
didn't know how I would get there, but I did, and I trusted, and I followed my intuition, and I got like lifelong friends, major breakthroughs. Like, there was a dinner one night at that retreat, and I remember it was there that I realized that I had to leave my children's father.
Mm.
That's like where I like knew, you know, was being surrounded by all these women who I had just met that
Mm.
somehow loved me. And I was like, I had that realization there. So it was such a life changing experience in so many ways. And this is why I'm so passionate about live events too, is because you literally cannot quantify the value of trusting yourself to be in the rooms that you feel called to be in.
Mm. Yep.
It is like destiny. That's how I see it, you know?
Same. I love that you were that intuition piece, like that you just knew you were supposed to be there, but you didn't know why or what it was. That's how I felt before I made it my way into the first 4-day personal development seminar. it was a Brendan Burchard event, and I remember getting emails about it, and I'd never done anything like that before. I'd never gone to an event that I had to pay for with my own money, um, and been in the room with people who also paid with their own money and were so thrilled to be there, and like so many like-minded people I didn't even know existed in the world. It was an otherworldly experience, but I remember telling my husband, I'm like, I think I'm supposed to go to this thing. I don't know what it is. And thankfully, he's just like the most supportive, wonderful person ever. And he's like, okay, trust if you know you're supposed to be there, then go. And now I'm so in tune with what, the events that are available inside of the entrepreneur space, and have now decided like that's my calling in life, is to support um, people in the online coaching space, entrepreneurs who feel called to produce their own events. But I didn't know that at that time, but I felt like I saw myself there. I'm supposed to be there. So weird. Oh, I love
Well,
that
the power in
story.
trusting is like I said, you cannot quantify that. You have
Mm,
no idea
mm,
like what
mm,
one meeting could
mm,
mean for your life. It's just I love the magic of it.
mm. Yeah, yeah. There is. I always say there's such magic in the room, but it is hard to put words to. Yeah. So let's stay on the event track for just a bit, and talk about them, because they're my passion. They're my favorite thing, and I think it takes a lot to put yourself out there and build your own stage. And you host your own events in your business, and so I'm curious, what fills you with the most gratitude? Because it is work, and it does bring up a lot of, for some people, imposter syndrome, and like, just there's lots of inner work they have to do in order to even put themselves out there in that way, not to mention like the logistical work of making it happen. But I'm curious, like, why do you keep doing it? Because I'm guessing there's some sort of thoughts that come up afterwards of gratitude, and I'm curious what goes through your head.
Well, I think what's more important than what goes through my head is just how I feel, you
Mm,
know? And I think for me and most of the entrepreneurial women in my community, it's not really about the event. It's not really about the business. It's not even really about the connection. It's about a calling. It's about something that begins within. And you, like, when I hosted my first work weekend retreat, which was at the end of last year, I set this standard where I was like, it's just magic. The standard is magic. And I'm not going to over explain what's going to happen this weekend. I'm not going to, because I don't know.
mm,
My standard for this is that this is a very intimate, intuitively led space for these creative, feminine entrepreneurs who want to do things differently and do things out of the box and, have creative brains and don't really operate in your traditional way. So, why am I going to try to produce this event or promote this event in a traditional way? I'm not,
mm,
you know, that would be like, that doesn't make sense. So, I set this standard for it, and I really just set a standard for how I wanted to feel. And for me, hosting these events, it's not something that I set out to do. It's not something that I decided to do. It's something that I saw myself doing that wouldn't go away. That quite frankly, I didn't even want to do because it is stressful. It does ask more of you than producing an online program. It does require you to be seen unfiltered. You can't hide at an in-person event. And like, I think, that's why a lot of people say they want to do it and don't. I didn't want to do it, but I knew I had to.
yeah.
And when I was there, I remember like crossing the threshold into the house where we hosted the event and closing the door. And it was literally like I left everything behind me. I shut the door and I was like, we're in the snow globe now. And that feeling of being so immersed in what I know I am here to do, feeling so certain that I'm in the exact right place at the exact right time, surrounded by the exact right people, doing what I am destined to do right now. Like that feeling is something that you can't not do it,
Mm,
or you will be just like slowly kill your soul. You know what I mean?
I
It's
feel
like
that
that kind of calling for me anyway, that live events is.
100%. I feel that. And I think a lot of the entrepreneurs who are super passionate about events feel that same way too. They're like, this is the most expensive and the hardest thing that I do in my business. And I have to do it. Like, I just feel amazing afterwards. And being in that space with my people and watching the magic unfold, the serendipity of it all is it's just too much to pass up.
Yeah, you feel like the magician, you know? It's like you're holding this magic wand and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
I have this vision in my mind's eye and I'm waving this magic wand and make like actually manifesting it into form in front of my eyes, and then to watch the magic that unfolds when you like hold that vision like precious. Like I was so precious with it, you know what I mean? And I feel like the more precious you are with your vision for your event and your intention for your event, and like the clearer you are on why you're doing it and what you want people to get out of it, the more you attract exactly that, and the more of that magic is present there. And that's the feeling. It's like you said, that feeling of magic, like being in a snow globe where it's all like we all came together in this moment for a reason. And it's so much more powerful than like we all saw this Instagram post at the same time. Like it hits different, you know?
Agreed. Agreed. I think I love how you said that. Well, I tell people that I feel like events are the live embodiment of the brand. And I love how you said that you were wanting to be congruent with yourself and your brand and your business by promoting it in the way that felt true to you. And also, I heard you saying some principles in there that are just core to every event promotion, which is first get clear on who should be in the room, like who is this for and who's this not for, and why are you doing it. I start every client with that, like why why for you, why for the business, why for your guests, and who's there, who's in the room. And so it's almost like you intuitively knew that that's like a principle that's not worth messing with, and it led you to the magic that was in your room.
Well, because it's not really an events principle exclusively, right? It's kind of a spiritual principle, it's a
Mm,
life principle. There's this quote in this book called Gene Keys by Richard Rudd, and he says, start how you wish to go on,
mm,
right? Because whatever seed that you are planting, that's what's going to grow.
mm, mm,
No matter no matter how often or how little you water it, no matter how much you change the environment, like those seeds that you plant, like there's only so much you can do. Like you're going to get that plant. And that plant can thrive, you know, but it's like you just have to accept that how you start is how it's probably going to play out. And so
mm,
if you start with this, you know, kind of haphazard energy and kind of slapping things together because you know you want to do an event, but you're not quite sure why. Or you know you want to do an event, but you're not quite sure why you're choosing that itinerary. Or it's like you don't have this compass or guiding light for all the decisions that you're making. And so what ends up happening is that you end up attracting like a haphazard audience too, you know? And yeah, it doesn't have the same coherence, it doesn't have the same focus and the same result because of that, you know?
100%. I think it's undervalued how important curating who's in the room is, because as much as the offer that's made from stage or the agenda, it who's in the room, like they're co-creating that magic, if you will, with you, and they will feel it when they're in lockstep with each other, and they'll also feel it if they're not. Yeah.
Oh, 100%. And, remembering too that, yes, we all have logical buyers in our audience, but really at the end of the day, everybody's looking for a feeling.
Mm.
And so, you can add all the bells and whistles and whatever, but at the end of the day, if you don't have the intention and you don't have that clarity, and you don't know exactly what you're offering, you you're not going to have the right people in the room, and they're not going to get the feeling that you want them to get and that they want to get too, and you're not going to get that feeling either, because that's what we're all looking for. The host, the staff, everybody is looking for a feeling. So I always, like, for myself and my clients, I'm like, let's just start there before we even think about the details, before we even think about the launch strategy, before we even think about the branding or whatever. It's like, what is the feeling that you're offering to these people that are going to be there at the event, not just as a guest, but present there in the room.
Well, I feel that that's so important. That's so good. That's such beautiful coaching that you give. I I wanted to kind of continue on that vein of magic for a moment. So I feel nostalgia often, and I think I don't know, I haven't totally uncovered why. I experienced a lot of trauma in my childhood, and I think it's easy to forget the bad parts and really hone in on the good parts. And so I like to say that the seeds of my like passion for events started in childhood.
Yeah.
Something you just said really reminded me of this book that I'm reading right now, 10X is Easier Than 2X by Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan. Have you heard of it?
I've definitely heard of the title, but I haven't read it.
Well, Dan has been coaching entrepreneurs for over 50 years, and he was talking about this concept of how, like, he was like the youngest of a whole bunch of children, and he would find himself, and he was on a farm and growing up, and he would find himself just kind of by himself often and wandering around the farm. And I think there was maybe a lot of space between him and his other siblings. And so a lot of his childhood was spent just like walking around and talking to adults and asking them like how things worked and what was working for them, and just basically interviewing and gathering information. And he said it's like that's who I was then, and that's who I am now. Like it was definitely like the seed that was planted in childhood. It's like it's who I am, and I just have like kind of, as they use this example in the book of like chipping away at the David, like taking the marble away and just like uncovering like who you really are. And I was just hearing that in what you were saying about how like starting like the seed that you plant at the beginning of your event planning process, and how like what you plant at the beginning is what will grow. And yeah, it just tied nicely into that book, which I'm just madly in love with right now.
I love that. Yes, it's so true. And it's like I said, it becomes your compass
Yeah.
for making decisions. If you know that you want to feel, like for me, I have a tendency to feel a lot of urgency around, sales, like a lot of pressure and urgency around sales, and avoidance too. And so when I was going through that process with this event, when I could feel myself, creeping into those old habits, it was like a little bit easier for me to just pause and be like, hang on a second, because the seeds that I planted for this process were that I wanted to feel this way. So either there's something that I'm doing, or there's something that I'm putting my energy into right now that's causing me to feel this way, or I need to take a step back, recenter, remember the initial intention for this, remember why I'm doing this, and begin again, and because if you get yourself into those panic modes, if you slip into those old patterns and you forget why you're doing it and you forget the intention, again, you're going to end up making decisions that are out of alignment with what the experience you really want to curate
Mm,
and the feeling that you really want to create for all these people who are coming, you know?
I couldn't
It's
agree
so
more.
important.
It's like Oprah. I think they say that before every meeting, she asks, like, what's the intention for this meeting? And, when they're sitting down at the table together. And I think that's, yeah, it's the same. You got to keep, and I love that you have a check and balance process in place for yourself to be noticing how you're feeling. And then you have like a plan of action already kind of ready for yourself to like recheck in with what was the intention and then like kind of course correct.
Yeah, I mean, it's unrealistic to think that you're going to go start something new or make some kind of change and not have distractions come up, not have old habits, sneak around the corner and be like, how about now? I bet it's really tempting now. Now that you're starting something new, now that you're feeling a little bit uneasy, now that things are feeling a little bit chaotic and you're not quite sure what's going on, like you're still gaining your footing, all of those old little shadows and patterns and all of those fears and insecurities, those things are going to creep up again. They're maybe going to wear different costumes than they did the last time you healed them, right? And released them. But here they are again. And, what are you going to do with that? Right. And for me, I try to take a more proactive approach. I know that's going to happen. So, where so many times I've fallen back into these old habits and then beat myself up over it, which just makes you unable to pull yourself out. Instead, it's like, no, I know that when I go and start this something new, when I go and commit to running this event that feels really scary for me, I know that I'm going to get scared. I know that these patterns are going to come up. So what are things that I can put in place to support myself now so that when those moments happen, I'm fully equipped,
Mm.
you know? And I don't expect perfection. And I don't expect that, just because I feel like I healed it before doesn't, like I don't expect any of that. It's just like, how can I support myself?
Mm. Wow. I'm thinking about I have phone alarms that go off. They're silent and they just put words on my screen throughout the day. And one that I've had on for quite some time is like I, I I trade my expectations for appreciation, and I have always thought about it in terms of like what I expect others to do for me that and the expectation that they're not meeting, that I may or may not have even shared with them. That's another story. But what you're sharing here is really helping me see that uh, in a different light, that like I have expectations around how I should feel or what I've healed and what's not going to come up again, and that I need to also let go of those.
Absolutely. There's this channel in the human design chart where it begins in the root center with gate 41, which is like where your imagination is. It's kind of like the void where you're there and there's almost like this restlessness to it, but you don't have any forward motion yet. You're just in the stages of like, I want a new experience. It's like hunger for a new experience, right? Like that insatiability that we get sometimes, especially as entrepreneurs, of like, I want another experience. I want something new. And it connects with this gate called desire, or the clinging fire in the solar plexus. So it's like this channel, this energy is so much about like, because when we have desire, a lot of times we project expectations onto that desire. So it's like, oh, I desire this person, right? Actually, we desire to feel something that we feel in that person's presence, right? So
Yes.
instead of placing the expectation on them to make us feel that way, it's like, how do I make myself feel that way? And then notice who and what around me supports that, reflects that, can vibe with that, can align with that, you know? Where do I feel most like me? Who do I feel most like me around, you know? Um, and releasing the expectations of what it has to be and if it's good or bad or anything. It's like it just is what it is. I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs get so stuck because of their expectations. Like they have some expectations for a launch and the launch doesn't go the way that they planned, and they make it mean something about them instead of just taking that, using it as information to do it differently next time and keep going. But instead they get paralyzed because they internalize that, right? But if you release expectations of the experience and you replace that with appreciation for the experience, the appreciation for the moments where it feels really, really uncomfortable and you're doubting yourself, because those are the moments where it's an opportunity for you to fortify confidence in yourself. Why are you doing what you're doing when things aren't going the way that you planned, that you expected them to? It's an opportunity for us to check back in and be like, what is the reason I'm doing this? Is the reason that I'm doing this for this number? Or is the reason that I'm doing this because I had a vision and I had a calling and I am a creator and I have this entrepreneurial spirit that doesn't quit? That's probably why I did it. You know what I mean? And so if we can check back in and release those expectations and have the appreciation for no matter what the moment feels like, just be there with it. It's like you can have everything that you think you're lacking right now because you can feel it.
Gosh, that's so beautiful. It's making me think it's either the 10x is easier than 2x or the book right before that in this series, The Gap and the Gain, again with Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy. And there's a quote in there that says, wins are wins and learnings are wins. And got to remember that all the time.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Did you watch the Beckham documentary?
I did.
I mean, that shook me. Like for days that impacted me because I thought so much about how certain things that he did were perceived failures in the eyes of so many. But if you look at the whole arc of the story, it was just part of the story.
Yeah.
That's all it was. It wasn't good. It wasn't bad. It wasn't, it was just part of the story that he's playing out in his life, that he played out in that career. And like watching how other people's projections of what's good and bad and their expectations of like that, all those expectations and all those projections, that's the dark energy. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Failure is not bad. Failure is not really a thing. Like it's just things are happening and you're either moving on or you're not.
I love how you think. I really do. And I think that, and I think what I love so much is that the me from 10 years ago would be like, what in the actual F are you talking about right now? Like, why are you even thinking about something like human design, like, or entertaining that would be valuable? Like, I think I was so far off from embracing anything like that would sound anything like woo-woo, and I've just come so far in realizing that the more I understand myself, the further I can go and the more value I can deliver for others and the more joy I can live out in my own life. And I'm proud of myself for opening my mind to thinking differently. Yeah.
I'm proud of you too. I'm proud of us.
So I'm guessing you probably saw on my chart that I'm a very practical, type of person, and so I definitely had to step out of some boxes that I put myself in.
Well, that's the thing too, is like I'm extremely practical too.
Oh, really?
And yeah, and to me, like what you might call woo, I'm like, you'll see. Like it's not. It's really not, because everything's made of
Yeah.
energy. Everything has an electromagnetic field. Like all of
Yeah.
these things that human design is describing, these are actual, real, tangible things. And so the language that I'm using is not woo, it's just unfamiliar,
So
you
good.
know? And the way that I'm talking about it is very big picture, where we're used to just looking at things in the lens of like what's going on in my life right now, And the way that I look at human design is, not only are you understanding yourself deeper on a deeper level, but you're understanding others on a deeper level too. Because when you can understand how different you are from others, you can also see how different they are from you and from everyone else. And that allows for a deeper understanding. And then you see how it's all just a microcosm for life,
The
you know?
Oh, a
Like
thousand
we're
percent.
all we're all part of life. So it's like when you can understand yourself and you can understand, other people, it's like you can see the bigger picture. You can see what it's really about. And to me, that's like where most of the value is. I actually don't even know my own human design chart as well as I know my clients' charts. Like I'm like, I know where things are, but if someone was like, "Oh, what's your conscious Mercury gate?" I'd be like, "Let me think." But because it's like, to me, it just is a map for how everything operates. Like how life operates, and how we all interact with each other and how we all interact with, that deeper calling that everyone has. Human design just gives us like a map for that, or a flashlight for that, so we can find it a little bit more efficiently.
Yeah, I definitely feel that the more I understand myself, the more I understand others, and the better my interaction with every person I encounter gets. And I also recognize that I'm a person who loves to know the why behind things, and that this is one more tool, human design, to understanding the why. And that's why I'm feeling so called to embrace it as another modality of just understanding who I am and others. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so powerful.
I wanted to talk about magic for a little bit. So, because it's come up so often for us in this conversation, and I wanted to share that I feel nostalgia often, and I think so. I experienced a lot of trauma in my childhood, and I think it's easy to forget the bad parts and really hone in on the good parts. And I think about where my passion for events started, and I really think it was the one time of year that there were people in our home, like our my one side of our family would all gather for Thanksgiving. And I just loved the energy of getting ready to receive people into our home. I love the energy of a full house. I love the energy of like sharing food with each other. I just I'm an introvert, and I love time by myself, but I definitely feel so charged up by like being in community with others. And I've felt that same way anytime I've ever put myself into a in-person event. And so I think the nostalgia I think about is the magic. The magic is often the magic of childhood, like the magic of the moments where like family was together and it just felt special because like the grown-ups had done things that kind of would make that happen, right? Whether it was food or gifts or whatever the experience was. And I heard you talking on someone else's show recently about the pressure that we feel as mothers to create the magical experiences, especially around holidays, and how it can feel heavy. And I totally feel that too. And also, I feel like it's an expression of who I am as someone who's like deeply passionate about caring for others. Like it's just one way I'm able to express that is by creating experiences. And I want to I want to have you share, if you would, how you think about creating magical experiences for your business event guests. And yeah, I'll leave it there.
I think what helps is that I try to just live my life that way. Um, Finding the magic in everything and finding the magic in myself and seeing the magic in others. It's just like very much, it's very much alive in my life. And so naturally, my business has just been an ecosystem for that since the beginning. So now, building my business online, I started it when I was pregnant with my daughter. And then, she was just a few months old when the pandemic hit. So I built my business completely online, and putting on an event like the events that I put on, I mean, I kind of went from like 0 to 60. Like I really just just foot all the way on the gas. But to me, it was just, again, like setting the standard of magic. Again, feeling the calling, seeing the vision, having to do all of this deep work to feel like I was even capable of moving toward that vision. And I mean, and through it all, just all of the personal transitions that I have been through in the last year, like starting out on this new venture, it's like it's magic by nature. So as far as like creating the magic, it's not something that we show up at the house and I'm like, okay, how can we make the vibe more magical? It's because the standard of magic was that seed was planted from the beginning, and I only watered that seed with magic, and I showed up with magic, and I don't know, it's like I didn't have to think about it. It just happened. And the right people showed up, and every single person who came, it's a smaller event, they were like, I didn't even really know what I was getting myself into. It was just as soon as I heard you talking about it, I saw myself there. And I was like, great, that's exactly the intention that I set for every single person who was going to be here. So great, it worked,
Yeah.
And so I don't know, again, it's like I think, again, when you have your intention and you know what you want people to feel and you know what you want them to get out of it, for me, it's very easy to curate the event. It's very easy to make decisions about what should be included and who should be included, and how to set the stage. It's really, and then everything else is just extra. Everything else is just extra. Anything else that you do to create a magical experience for your guests is extra when you've created it from the inside out. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, that's really clear for me. I don't know why it's making me think about this interview I saw recently with Jada Pinkett Smith when she was talking about her new book and how she was talking about how Will Smith lives his life like that, like you just described, where he's like trying, like you said, you live your life with the intention of creating magic, and how she was describing him like that too. It makes me want to read their book when she said they'll do one someday together. I thought it'll be fun.
Yes.
I want to shift and talk about how you help people. And so you're an expert in human design, and we talked about how like I saw that episode with you and Jill and I instantly printed off my profile, but then I went and dug into our bin of like very important papers to find my husband and daughter's info too, so I could do all three of ours. And it was just so interesting, like a couple of things that popped out about like my husband and my daughter instantly. I was like, yes, that is so true. And I wonder, I know you coach high level entrepreneurs one-on-one and in your business breakthrough membership, and I wonder how human design has made you a better entrepreneur. And then, maybe you can get into some of the breakthroughs that you've seen for clients too, but yeah, just a little bit more around why it's important to embrace this knowing, like maybe a few stories.
Yeah, I mean, I think like my origin story with human design is one example of, having this really big breakthrough around, wow, I've really been operating in such a way that is kind of the opposite of how I was designed, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak, according to my human
Mm-hmm.
design. And it made sense because I was kind of operating how I had always seen my mother operate.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother's a projector and I'm a manifester. I operate differently from 91% of the population. And so, you know, I was just getting started with my business when I found human design. And so really the foundation of my business was built on me learning all of this. But I would say like human design has helped me understand like the nature of business
Mm.
because it's like for example, it is an archetypal system, right? So it's like all the archetypes of human behavior live within this system. So really any behavior that any you see anyone displaying, you can find it on the chart. And you can also see like what the sort of shadow expression of that behavior or energy is, as well as the gift. Like, okay, well, if this person like leans in and, heals whatever it needs attention here, they actually have the capacity for this ability, right? So being able to see that, I mean, you can't, again, it's like so hard to quantify the value in that because, you know, it's made me just a better person in every way, a better mom, a better friend, a better just in every way because I can understand and see like, you know, this is who I am and this is who I'm designed to be and these are the areas in which I need to grow in order to feel like I'm fulfilling my potential. And it just gives you so much direction, but also it helps you to connect with others on a deeper level, like I said. And in your business, I mean, when you work with clients and you have their human design, you can basically cut away like the first 4 sessions, right? Because you show up and you already got their number. You already know their assignment. You know what they're here for. You know what their strengths are. You know what their weaknesses are. You know where there's probably tension right now in their relationship, especially if you get their partner's chart. All these things, and I mean I'm fairly intuitive too, so I'm sure that that helps. So when people talk to me, I hear what they're not saying,
Mm.
but
I
it's
feel
like
naked right now.
I mean it's it's so powerful,
Mm-hmm.
and you are able to see that person immediately on a level that sometimes no one has ever seen them.
Mm.
And the power in that, and as a practitioner, as a coach, like feeling them feel seen and understood and like validated in their experience. Jill Stanton said she calls it like a power up
Mm.
when she's feeling a little bit low and she looks at her human design chart and she's like, oh, right, oh, now I remember who I am. And it's like she like powers
Mm.
up, and it's like this new level of confidence that she has that she can move with. And I feel that so deeply. And to be able to give that to clients and to be able to give that to your community and to be able to give that to the people that you love. Like, I don't necessarily talk about my children's human design with them, but I can meet them where they are because I understand them on such a deeper level than my parents could ever understand me.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, it's like how has it not made me a better entrepreneur,
Mm.
leader, mom,
Mm.
person? How has it not?
Mm.
I don't, it's just, yeah, it's so hard to quantify. So when I work with clients, there are different populations of clients that I work with, but with my private clients, I'm working with, yeah, very high level visionary, like founders, feminine leaders. So way showers, they're really doing things differently as far as business goes. It's, more feminine cyclical principles, like how do we do business in like an ethical way that, where we're not burning out and we're taking care of our communities and we're collaborating and working together and we have, these higher ideals in mind. Those kinds of women who have these big visions and are trying to take these dreams and manifest them to form with these creative brains and emotional systems and doing all of the work that's required. It's like, you know, Yeah, I'm a business strategist because I work with all these entrepreneurs across all these industries. So I love like tying things together and coming up with new ways like, oh yeah, my client who owns like a furniture store used this strategy that I think would be really great for my client who's a painter.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I love doing that.
Yes.
But also what happens when you reach some level of success as an entrepreneur, you now it's like you feel sometimes that you have more to lose. And even though you've always identified as a creative, maybe you all of a sudden have this like risk aversion.
Mm.
And when you do get these big ideas or these big visions, there's this pressure almost to morph them or water them down so that they're more palatable for your audience, for your industry, for whatever, because you're afraid to lose what you've built. Right. And there's so many different fears and insecurities around that. And I love looking at that through the chart. But you know, I love working with those women because being able to hold the space for them to like be the incubator for that vision and keep it protected and not allow for outside influence, like allow them to stay true to their vision and true to their art and true to their mission and not like sell out, so to speak, and do the inner work that's required to show up in a new way and do a new thing, whether it's running their first in person event or starting a completely new arm of their business as a mentor or whatever it may be. It's like supporting clients through those major transitions and transformations as they, you know, make really big moves in ways that no one ever has before. So that's how I love to support my private clients. But it's really like, what day is it and what am I in the mood to be offering to my people in the moment? But I also, I have my flagship training program too. So for my students who want to learn human design and implement it into their business for their client experience and, for their own business as far as their own strategy and the way that they work, Embodied by Design is my training program, and I'm really excited. We are refilming the entire thing in front of a live audience this year.
That's
Yeah.
exciting.
So, yeah, we're going to be nerding out for 4 straight days in May, while I'm teaching level 1 of the
And that's your
program. So
certification course, right?
that's my certification. Yeah. So we're redoing the entire program, splitting it up into 2 levels, and we're filming level 1 at the end of May. In a house, and we're going to be cozy and nerding out on human design for 4 days. It's going to be
Oh,
great.
how exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. I haven't seen anyone do it this way, so I'm excited to do something
What
new.
a fun way to design and deliver your curriculum. Yeah, that'll feel like you're co-creating with them a little bit. And they'll
Yes.
gosh, to be in that room will be so fun. I had a
Yes.
client.
Come.
I had a thank you for the
Come be in the room.
invitation. The
Anyone who's listening who wants to learn human design, I'm very excited for it. It is going to be one
yeah.
of those things where it's like the people who are in that room are going to be so curious and so so wanting to
Mm-hmm.
learn. And that's what really that's the vibe I'm setting for it, and that's what I'm so excited about because I love to nerd. So
I had a
yeah.
client who I did that for once. It was a virtual event for thousands, but then we had just this really nice, intimate 6-person in person audience. So my client could vibe off of them. And uh,
Exactly.
it, yeah, it was really a really fun experience. And especially for those in the room, they made kind of lifelong friendships. And that was really special.
Yes.
Oh, I'm excited for you. That's so
Thank
fun.
you. I'm excited too.
I have a, I want to ask about parenting for a moment. We're both parents, and I think a lot about doing a really good job as a parent. It's one of my very highest values, and that. So as I think about raising my daughter, this new lens of entrepreneurship has kind of given me different things to think about in terms of lessons that I would want to impart on her. And I think about making sure she's aware that there are ways to drive revenue outside of the traditional 9 to 5 job format, because I didn't know until I was maybe, I don't know, 36, 37 years old. And I think about teaching her how to grow wealth too. I also didn't know that, and that's something I want her to know about. And then the last kind of most important thing that I think about wanting to impart on her is um, this sense of self-awareness and self-compassion. And I wonder, what lessons are you working on imparting on your kids? I know they're probably young, but I'm sure you have some ideas already, and I'm curious what they are.
Yeah. It's been so long since I have been asked a question about parenting in an interview. I'm like, because my journey with parenting has changed so
Mm.
much. A year ago, this week actually, um, my children's father moved many states away.
Mm.
So I'm a full time single
Oh,
mom of two.
wow.
They're 4 and 8 years old. And our livelihood is my creative business, right?
Wow.
So that has been a major transition and has taught me so much about what really is important in parenting. And that, as someone who's so obsessed with information and knowledge and having the answers and knowing the why and how things work, and, you know, um, if I want my children to feel this way, like I want my children to know who they are and to be secure in themselves and to know for them what their values are and what it feels like to be in integrity with those
Mm.
values, so that as they move through the world, when they meet a person, they know immediately, if they want to have that person in their life or not. Or when they begin a new enterprise, they know immediately. Like, it's like that's really important to me. And so, you know but how I show up for that has changed so much, because my own relationship with that has changed so much. And so what I've realized is that while I do love knowing the whys and all the answers and all the research and all the theories and like why we say these things and don't say these things, at the end of the day it's so much less about what we're doing, because children see and feel and hear and taste and touch much more than we perceive, than we understand that they perceive. And so they are feeling who we're being. They are hearing how we're talking to ourselves. Everything that we say to them, they feel the energy of it beyond what the actual word language is. So you could be saying all the right things, but if you're not being an embodiment of the values that are at the foundation of saying those things, there's an incongruence there. All that's going to do is make your child feel anxious, because what they're experiencing coming out of your mouth sounds much different from what they're experiencing based on how they're feeling in your presence. So to me, authenticity is 100%. I have a friend who won't cry in front of her children. And I'm just like, I not only do I allow my children to see me cry, I let them know that I schedule time after they go to bed to cry. I let them know what my process is for moving my emotions and feeling my emotions in a healthy
Mm.
way. I let them know that sometimes I get so angry and frustrated in the moment when they're not listening and when they're acting up, that I have to come in my room and I have to scream into a pillow and punch it until I'm tired and the energy's gone. I tell them all of those things because when you are pretending for your children, you're teaching them to pretend.
Mm. So good.
Why on earth would I want that?
Yep.
That's the one thing I don't want. I don't want my children to walk through the world pretending so they can be safe.
Mm.
So that's my journey, is to come back to who I am and walk my own path and stay in my own lane and do what I know to be right for me and my values and my integrity and my children, and let the chips fall where they may and deal with the consequences. But like, I'm doing the best that I can and being who I am. And I think that's the best thing I can do for my kids. I think that's the best thing any of us could.
Yeah, I had my one of my therapists say to me once, if you could just sportscast more, that would be helpful for your daughter. And so just like talk through out loud like what's happening. Well, right now I'm feeling like my chest tighten because I know that we really should have left the house about 5 minutes ago, and but we're all still waiting because we need to have this done, or like this person hasn't done this yet, or whatever the thing may be. And so it's making my chest feel tight, and because I'm feeling a little like I'm starting to feel anxious that we're not going to get where we need to go on time. And so that's what my body is feeling like right now. And it's making me not be able to hear what's being said by the people around me, like that kind of thing. And I found that that has deepened our relationship so much in if just being open about like what's happening inside of my body from a feeling standpoint, what's happening inside of my body from a thoughts perspective. And it takes so much bravery. Oh my gosh, but it's so worth it. I think both in our like marital relationships and our relationships with our children. Yeah, that's so beautiful what you said.
I mean, one of the major collective shadows that's like a dark cloud over like everyone right now and that lives within all of us is this shadow of dishonesty.
Mm,
And it starts with being dishonest with ourselves. How many times do we deny parts of ourselves, deny their existence
mm,
because they make others uncomfortable? How many times do we lie to ourselves about our own behavior because we can't stand the thought of doing anything differently? How many times are we not honest with those around us because we're afraid of what their reaction might be? And what that creates is because we are feeling
mm-hmm,
beings, we feel the incongruence in dishonesty. And so when someone is telling us this thing and saying, no, 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 I'm telling the truth, but we have a feeling inside of us,
mm-hmm,
we start gaslighting ourselves. We stop believing ourselves,
mm,
right? And it's just like it creates this loop of dishonesty, and it's this wall. Just we're all just like walling each other off. And so when you can pause, and instead of closing off and trying to make that feeling go away or rush it away or brush it under the rug, and you can stop and say, oh yeah, there's tightness in my chest, what's going on here, and just like get curious about that and say it out loud to the person in front of you. They can then be like, oh my god, what a relief, because I was feeling that.
mm,
I was feeling
mm-hmm,
that, and now I feel validated, and that makes me feel safe, and it makes me feel like I can trust myself, I can trust how I feel. It creates beautiful intimacy. And the feelings that we get from true, honest, open, transparent intimacy with other humans, that's where we can find most of what we're longing for.
yeah.
We want belonging.
Oh yeah.
We want to belong,
Yep.
you know? And we think it's money, we think it's security, we think it's love, like romantic love, we think it's all these different things, you know but it's like when you can sit there and stand in your truth and be totally open and honest about who you are and why you feel the way that you feel, and be unencumbered by taking responsibility for how anyone else is going to respond to that. Not only is that like true power, but you feel all of these feelings inside of you that you've been looking for in all these external material ways. You feel like you belong. You feel like you're seen and understood, and like no matter what, you're going to be okay. You're safe. You're secure.
Mm.
So It's like, yeah, we can go and chase all of these things, or we could just get really, really honest with ourselves and the people around us and allow for true intimacy and allow to receive like all the gifts that are in that, you know, in intimacy. And that's probably why we have such a passion for live events, is because that's what you get there. That's what you get. You get intimacy, you get belonging, you feel seen, you feel understood, you feel like a kindred connection. And it fills you up for a minute. You want for nothing. For a minute, you don't need to go home, you don't need to rush out of the room. For a minute, you're not thinking about all the things you have to do. For a minute, you are fully present and you are with the people that you know you're meant to be with in that moment. And yeah, it's magic, but it's intimacy and it's truth, and it's what we're all looking for. That's why we do it.
That's so beautiful. I it's so beautiful. I think about when I coach people, I say that like when someone is arriving at your event and they're walking through the doors for the first time, the thought that is in their head is, how do I fit in? And it's our job to show them what it looks like to belong, because that's what they're looking for, and that sense of belonging. And so show them what that looks like, you know? And even if it's as simple as like, Krystal, I'm so glad you're here. Everyone's grabbing a drink over there, and then they're finding, you know, like someone to say hello to and say where they're from and what they do, like, whatever it is. But like, people are looking for, how do I belong, at that most basic level when they arrive, and then they find, you know, that all of the magic is inside, as you described. So it's so beautiful.
Oh yeah. And too, like, making people feel like they belong. It's like when you know how to make yourself feel like you belong, you can do that for anyone, because it's a felt sense. You know what it feels like to belong. And so you know how to help someone else feel that way too.
You're like, as we talk here, you're like double, triple underlining the work that I'm doing right now with my therapist to uncover. Like, I have this like notepad on my phone every time we talk, and I'm listing out right now like my different areas of my childhood. So like, you know, when I was young, or when I was in middle school or high school or college or whatever, and I'm listing off as we uncover the things, like, oh, so the fear emotion, like that's coming, like that's actually this age right here that's coming out and like having a voice. Or, you know, when I'm feeling like this sense of like not belonging, that's right here. That's
Probably middle school, right?
oh my gosh.
The
But
worst.
that
I know. Well,
identity
and
work, and that just knowing who you are at your truest sense, so that you know where you belong and how that feels, so you can deliver it to others, like you said.
Well, and also I think, like, bringing that up, it ties also to a wound that many of us have as entrepreneurs, but especially as women, which is like that sister wound,
Mm.
that witch
Mm.
wound. That's like, how many times have we been stabbed in the back by other
Mm.
women who were supposed to have our
Mm.
backs, who were supposed to, I mean, how many times did you think that you belonged,
Mm.
and suddenly, I don't know if this ever happened to you, but like suddenly you show up and all the people that you thought were your best friends suddenly don't talk to you anymore. And you're just like,
Mm.
whoa, what just happened, you
Mm.
know? And so we host these events, and you know, those traumas, those experiences, like, to me, those are shaping your destiny. Those are breadcrumbs to your destiny. Like, those experiences that you have, how you choose to move move through them and beyond them, is like taking those experiences and putting them into my events. Looks like, when you go to a sleepover or a birthday party when you're a kid, and you get there and I was so shy. as a kid. Like I was so incredibly shy. I'm an introvert too. And you show up and you're just like, oh my God, what do I do? Is anyone going to say hi to me? And like, whenever there was like that kid or that parent who would come over and make you feel welcome, like you could be at ease. Otherwise, you're anxious the whole time. And so remembering that, like you said, and bringing that into your event, and just as simple as going over and saying, oh my gosh, hi. Like, it's like you're healing that part of you.
Mm,
Those moments are healing moments. You can
mm,
release that part of you that has been holding on to that hurt, that has caused you to self isolate, that has caused you to keep other women at arm's length, that has caused you to, you know, not be able to receive support from other women, not be able to be in true intimacy with them because of those experiences where we were bullied and like, yeah, I mean, it's so hurtful. And so to be able to kind of transcend that through your own journey and then share that gift with others at your event, it's bigger than creating a vibey experience and helping them to transform. It's also like very healing.
I never thought about it that way. But like, when we started today, I shared that I made my way into my first 4-day personal development seminar. It was Brendan Burchard's, and I've never. I love being in charge at events because it just feels very empowering, and I just feel a sense of confidence. And so I have no issue being in a room with 10 or 200 or 2,000. I just feel so like a sense of belonging. Like I'm meant to be there, and I have no trouble talking with people. But when I'm there as an attendee, whether it's a happy hour or a big event, like my shyness and my introvertedness all comes up, and I just rather die than be in the room, and which is just so weird. But I noticed that when I went to that 4-day personal development seminar, I've never felt so much like I belonged. And like looking back, it's Brendan is masterful at what's the word? Kind of his, what are those skills? What's the fancy word for your skills for kind of working with an audience and teaching them, like helping them workshop and telling them what to do or not to do? No,
Charisma or
no, why I can't remember the word right now. There's like whole industries of people who teach facilitation. His facilitation
oh,
skills are just kind of like next level, and it instantly would show me like, okay, this is, you're going to get into groups of 5 and you're each going to have 2 minutes and you're each going to share this, and like go, like, so there was always like a box that showed me this is how I fit in this interaction that I'm going to have with strangers. And I just felt such a sense of belonging, and what a gift to give audiences. And I love that you're saying that there's so many ways that we can heal past wounds by giving the gift of what we didn't have to others. It's beautiful.
that's the point, I think.
Mm.
I think that's why we go through that stuff.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I always like to end with kind of this part in the podcast where I just give any event strategy or event logistics advice, just because it's my favorite thing to talk about. Are there any challenges that you want to brainstorm on or talk through or get some extra advice on before we wrap up? Or is there like a dream that you're holding on to, but you're like, I'm not really sure how I'd make that happen? Anything I could share with you that would be helpful?
I wasn't expecting to be able to ask a question. No, you know what? Actually, no, this is good because what we're doing in my business this year is taking my training
Mm,
program, Embodied by
mm,
Design, and after we film it live, we're going to evergreen it.
mm. Love that.
And I'm really excited for that. It's something that I've been dreaming about for a really long time. Is just finally just scaling. Like
Yeah,
it's
it's
it's just
time.
been time for a while. Huh, it's
Yeah.
been time for a while. So, um, but also with Work Weekend, which is a passion project for me, which, right now we're doing 2 per
Okay.
year. I'm like, what does an automated sales machine look like for an event that happens twice per year that is much more in alignment with like my personal brand than my human design work, you know? So I'm sort of like, is it is it something where you run promotional periods a few times per year to kind of get people in there? Is it something where I maybe like run an ad just, I don't know, in the background and like have leads coming in through a funnel?
Mm.
I'm like, I don't want to. I feel like if I'm not fully focused on it, it gets put on the back burner.
Oh,
And then I get myself into a cycle where I'm like, okay, well, we're not consistently selling these seats. And so now I'm having to figure out how to do some kind of promotion to fill several seats at once. And I don't like how that feels. Does that make sense?
totally. Ooh, I love that question. I love that awareness that you want to make it automated because you don't like how you feel when you're rushed and, you haven't planned for it. What I automatically think about when I think about your work weekend style events is that it is deeply personal. And I think the people who are meant to be in that room are already in your community, meaning they're already on your list, right? Like I actually don't think that's something that you run ads to unless you're running ads to people who follow you specifically, right? Because
It's
going
not a bad
going and
idea.
spending an intimate few days with someone in a small space isn't something that you say yes to. A cold audience says yes to. Do you follow?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Oh, for
this is
sure.
this is
Yeah.
like they're already on your email list, they're already on your programs, and this is the next level invitation of how to have more time and intimacy with you. And
Mm-hmm.
so I still think it can come from people who are not on your list per se, but already follow you. That makes sense to me, but it doesn't make sense that this would be any sort of like evergreen promotion outside of that container. And
Mm.
I think so. Ways I've seen this work is always having a wait list ready. So anytime that you are potentially casually dropping that something about a work weekend, whether maybe it's on your podcast, maybe it's in Instagram stories, maybe it's uh and someone else's, that you can mention that there is a wait list and those people get first priority because there are very limited, literally very limited, not making it up, spots. The house only takes this many people, and we will give away those spots first to the people on the wait list. And then if there's any available after that, then we would open it up to people not on the wait list. So I think that always
Mm-hmm.
helps with hype, is having a place to send them. Always, because you're going to talk about it it's going to come up in conversation, I think, in
Yeah, I actually have it so they can apply at any time
mm, I think
because I yeah, I don't love live launching. So I'm
mm,
trying to find a happy medium between always having it available in the background and having specific promotion times that are very clear, at least to me, because yeah, I haven't found a balance yet.
so yeah, it is challenging if it's always open for people to find an urgency and have that sense of scarcity, that like there's a limited amount of spots if it's always open and always available. And so like that's why the wait list is
I
there.
know.
So what if you did kind of a hybrid, because I know you don't want to do anything that's kind of like a live launch, but what if you just did it once and you wrote down, like pre-wrote, like what the email sequence would look like, what the stories that would go up on Instagram would look like, what the bumpers would say on your podcast, kind of all of the like the touch points of the people who kind of are in your ecosystem already. How could you like make them aware? and create
Mm-hmm.
the sales sequence once, and then just decide and assign it to a team member, like that this is going to do all of these things at these intervals, before, every 6 months or whatever. And so it's
Right,
just,
right, right.
it's
Yeah.
almost like you're making it evergreen, but you're just like, you've already just decided, and then you've assigned it to somebody else. It's not on you, and um, it's not a live launch you have to manage. And it doesn't include you having to do any sort of additional videos or like showing up in some sort of certain way live on stories, for example, because I think that is
Right, right.
probably, if I could pinpoint the thing that maybe causes stress or like friction for you, it would be like having to show up in a certain way, in a certain energy at a certain time.
Yeah, it's yeah. I don't know what it is exactly. It's just that I don't like the feeling of pressure.
Mm,
I just don't like feeling the feeling of pressure where it's like, okay, if I have a finite amount of time where they can enroll, which yeah, there's some internal stuff there too. But releasing the pressure around it is definitely a big one for me because, it feels like, okay, this is the plan we're choosing. And for a live event, if I don't sell it out during that period, I still have to sell it out. You know what
right.
I mean? So if I don't sell it out during the period that I like set out to sell it out, then and then it's like, oh great, I got to do another one, and I'm like, ugh. Then it's like this energy of like, blech,
So I
you
know you
know?
said initially that you wanted it separate from your human design brand, but I think you're a personal brand, and so like it's who you are. Like but they're both part of you,
That's true.
right? And so I wonder if you might consider the strategy of including a ticket that they just have to redeem with every purchase, and you only pick like so if you're already doing something on evergreen, let's say it's your certification, and you just say that this comes with it, and I know there's like less space in this than there is in this one, like there's less space in work weekend than there would be in your evergreen course, but you say that you have some version of that offer. Maybe it's the VIP version of the course that includes it. And then you just know that it's already full, and you've already collected the
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the revenue needed for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That could be an option to consider.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's good. It's good to, what I typically like to do is like explore all the options and sit with it and figure out how to meld them together in some way, because like the ones
But
I like,
something that
you
works
know?
for you. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's helpful just to hear different ways of doing it. So I appreciate that.
I'm glad that
Thank
was
you.
helpful. Well,
Yeah.
okay. Last thing is, where can Linchpin Nation find you, and what have you got going on now that you want to make sure they don't miss out on?
When will this go
We
live?
are, let me pull that up. I've got the exact date here.
Sure.
Hold the phone.
Good for you. I'm literally like, you know what? I feel like recording a podcast today, and then it's up 2 hours
Oh,
later.
yeah.
I'm getting better about it, but yeah, like for the last year, that's been my
I think
system. So
sometimes like that's the season that we are in, because I've been there. Okay, we've got
it's totally fine.
this going on April 22nd.
Okay, so I will be in. Okay, so when that goes live, we will be in the big promotional period for work weekend in October, because I will be
Mm.
currently at work weekend on April
Oh,
22nd.
magic.
Um, yeah, so we'll be promoting work weekend in October. We'll also be promoting Embodied by Design Level 2, which will be filmed live in September. Um, and that's all I know right now.
Well, those are very exciting
Those two
things.
live events.
And
Yes, very
where
exciting.
should we connect with you?
Instagram is great. You can always DM me there, and definitely listen to my podcast. That's where most of what's in my brain goes to the podcast. So Instagram and podcast are definitely the places to be.
And the name of your podcast is Under the Surface. And it's like this beautiful picture of you halfway under the water. And it looks like maybe in Hawaii. Is that right?
Yeah, that's where I used to live.
So special. Awesome. Krystal, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. This is an absolute joy to have a conversation with you, and appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Greenroom Central podcast. If you loved this episode, then please take a screenshot on your phone and post it to Instagram, and be sure to tag @SarahPfeiffer and let me know why you liked it and what you'd like to hear, or who you'd like to hear from in the future. That'll help me know what to create for you. The number one thing I'm asked by CEOs, whether it's their first event or their 20th, is, Sarah, how do I get more butts in seats? And so I put together a guide for you. Head over to fillingevents.com for your free copy of 107 ways to fill your event. I want to help you quickly master event marketing and fill your events, even if you've never done it before. I've scoured the online business world and found 107 of my favorite strategies working right now to fill your next in-person or virtual event. Create the event promotion plan you need from these easy-to-implement, customizable strategies for free over at fillingevents.com. I appreciate your commitment to leveling up and learning the mindset and strategy of live events. Keep going. Keep learning. If you want more, head over to greenroomcentral.com for show notes and all the links from today's episode.